The deployment of US B-52H Stratofortress bombers to Morón Air Base, Bomber Task Force Europe 26-1 and its strategic implications. On November 8, 2025, 3 Boeing B-52H Stratofortress strategic bombers from the 2nd Bomb Wing, Barksdale Air Force Base, Louisiana, landed at Morón Air Base in southern Spain, inaugurating Bomber Task Force, BTF, Europe 26-1, the first major U.S. strategic bomber rotation in Europe for fiscal year 2026. The Spanish defense outlet Defensa.com reported the arrival with precision, noting the aircraft's call signs, Kager 11, 12, and 13, their transatlantic refueling by KC-46 Pegasus and KC-135 Stratotanker aircraft, and the ceremonial intercepts by Portuguese F-16s and Spanish Eurofighters. Far from sensationalism, the article reflected a meticulously documented, routine yet symbolically potent operation that has since been corroborated by official U.S. Air Forces in Europe, USAF statements, DVIDS imagery, flight tracking data, and dozens of Allied media reports. The B-52H Stratofortress, now in its 7th decade of service, remains the backbone of America's airborne nuclear triad and a premier platform for conventional long-range strike. Nicknamed the Buff, Big Ugly Fat Fellow, the aircraft has received continuous upgrades. New Rolls-Royce F-130 engines, replacing the Pratt & Amp, Whitney TF-33s, advanced radar, APQ-166, the CONECT digital networking suite, and provisions for hypersonic weapons and standoff munitions such as the AGM-183 ARRW and long-range standoff LRSO cruise missile. These enhancements ensure the B-52 will fly into the 2050s, bridging the gap until the stealthy B-21 Raider reaches full operational capability. The 3 bombers crossed the Atlantic in a single formation, refueling multiple times before entering European airspace. Portuguese F-16s from Monte Real Air Base conducted a welcome intercept over the Atlantic, followed by Spanish Eurofighter Typhoons from Morón's own 11th Wing as the Stratofortresses descended toward Seville. Tail number 610036, 96th Bomb Squadron, known as the Red Devils, has been the most visible participant in subsequent missions, its distinctive red tail flash photographed repeatedly on the Morón ramp. Morón Air Base, a joint Spanish-US facility since 1953, has become the preferred European hub for BTF rotations. Its 3,900-meter runway, expansive aprons, and proximity to both the Strait of Gibraltar and the Western Mediterranean allow rapid projection across 3 continents. In 2025 alone, Morón hosted B-52s in May, BTF-25-2, and B-1B Lancers in March, underscoring Spain's quiet but critical role in NATO's southern flank. BTF Europe 26-1's tempo escalated quickly. On November 12, 2025, the very day the Defensa.com article was published, B-52H 610036, operating as PIOUS 97, executed a 14-hour mission that traced a giant arc from Spain across the North Sea, Baltic Sea, Finland, Estonia, and Sweden before returning to Morón. The bomber flew within 65 kilometers of Russian territory near Kaliningrad and St. Petersburg, shadowed by Finnish F, A-18C Hornets, Swedish JAS 39 Gripens, NATO E-3 AAWACS orbiting over Poland, and RAF Typhoons from Lossiemouth. The sortie rehearsed a classic NATO scenario: penetration of contested airspace, simulated release of standoff weapons, and exfiltration under heavy fighter cover. This was no isolated flight. The mission integrated with the newly activated Combined Air Operations Center, CAOC, in Bodø, Norway, the first NATO CAOC dedicated to the High North. Finland and Sweden, NATO's newest members, accession in 2023 and 2024, respectively, have prioritized interoperability with U.S. strategic bombers. Finnish Hornets practiced visual identification and escort procedures, while Swedish Gripens conducted live data link exchanges via Link 16, feeding targeting information to the B-52's CONECT system. Lithuanian and Estonian air policing assets monitored the bomber as it skirted Kaliningrad's heavily defended airspace, home to Russia's Baltic Fleet and numerous S-400 battalions. The Bomber Task Force concept, launched in 2018, replaced the Cold War practice of maintaining permanent bomber squadrons at bases like Fairford, UK, or Morón. Predictable rotations were vulnerable to preemptive strikes and politically sensitive. BTF instead employs short-notice, unpredictable deployments from CONUS bases, often lasting 2 to 6 weeks. Aircraft arrive with minimal warning, conduct integrated training, and depart, complicating adversary intelligence and targeting cycles. Since Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine, the tempo has intensified. 2024 saw 9 European BTF rotations. 2025 has already matched that pace. Earlier 2025 missions set the stage. In March, B-52s from Minot AFB trained over the Arctic Circle with Norwegian F-35s. In May, Barksdale bombers dropped live JDAMs in Morocco alongside the Royal Moroccan Air Force. In September, B-1B Lancers operated from Orland, Norway, simulating strikes on Russian Northern Fleet targets. BTF-26-1's Nordic emphasis reflects Finland's 1,340-kilometer border with Russia and Sweden's strategic control of the Baltic Sea entrances. Geopolitically, the deployment is unambiguous deterrence signaling. The November 12 Baltic mission occurred as Russia conducted snap drills with Iskander missiles in Kaliningrad and Su-35s probed NATO airspace near Latvia. Moscow's defense ministry routinely labels B-52 flights provocative, yet the bombers operate in international airspace or Allied territory, fully compliant with ICAO rules and often with transponders active for transparency. NATO, conversely, frames the missions as reassurance to frontline states. Lithuania, population 2.8 million, faces Russian and Belarusian forces outnumbered 20-1 in conventional terms. Finland worries about Arctic militarization. Sweden seeks to re-establish air defense credibility after decades of neutrality. Operationally, the B-52H remains astonishingly versatile. A single aircraft can carry up to 70,000 pounds of ordnance, 12 AGM-158C LRASM anti-ship missiles, 20 AGM-183 hypersonics, or a mixed load of nuclear-tipped LRSO cruise missiles, once fielded. Mid-air refueling, demonstrated repeatedly during BTF-26-1 by KC-46s from the 100th Air Refueling Wing at Mildenhall, extends loiter time over Europe to 20+ hours. The aircraft's low-frequency radar signature, combined with escort jamming from EA-18G Growlers, if deployed, complicates detection by even the most advanced Russian air defense networks. The Defensa.com article, published within hours of the Baltic mission, drew directly from USAF press releases and photographs released on DVIDS. Subsequent reporting by The Aviationist, Air and AMP, Space Forces magazine, Stars and Stripes, Finland's Ilta Sanomat, Sweden's Forsvarsmakten, and Spain's El Debate confirmed every detail. Serial numbers, squadrons, support assets, and even the names of participating NATO fighter squadrons. Flight tracking platforms, ADS-B Exchange, Flight Radar 24, and amateur spotters on X provided real-time corroboration, with photographs of 610036 taxiing at Rovaniemi, Finland, circulating widely. In conclusion, BTF Europe 26-1 is neither anomaly nor propaganda. It is the latest chapter in a deliberate, transparent campaign of agile strategic deterrence. 3 aging but relentlessly upgraded B-52s, operating from a Spanish base older than most NATO members, project American power across a continent still shadowed by war. They train with fighters barely half their age, integrate with command centers activated only last year, and reassure allies who joined the alliance precisely to avoid facing Russian aggression alone. The Defensa.com report, far from exaggeration, understates the operation's scope. What began as a routine Atlantic crossing has evolved into one of the most complex Allied air exercises since the Cold War, proving that in an era of drones and missiles, the sight of 8 jet engines thundering over the Baltic remains an unmatched symbol of resolve. As the deployment continues into late November and possibly December, Morón's Stratofortresses will keep flying, reminding any would-be aggressor that NATO's reach is global, its response time measured in hours, and its commitment ironclad.